Who's the next witness?
Ed Wagrowski.
Could you raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is a true self of God?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, could you take your seat there for the director? You have a seat. And then could you state your name for the record and spell your first and last name?
Edward Wagrowski, E-D-W-A-R-D, last name W-A-G-R-O-W-S-K-I.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Sir, how are you employed?
I am employed with the U.S. Secret Service.
How long have you been with the Secret Service?
Just a couple weeks.
Now, prior to this current job, where did you work?
The Oakland County Sheriff's Office.
How long were you with the Sheriff's Office?
28 years.
Okay, in those 28 years, where did you work?
I started out in dispatch and went to corrections after that, the road patrol, and then eventually did computer crimes.
Okay. And tell me, when you say computer crimes, what does that mean?
Do anything that has to do with the computer, cell phones, forensic examinations of computers, DVR equipment, call detail records.
And how long were you in computer crimes?
10 years.
In your time in computer crimes, did you receive specialized training with forensic analysis of electronic devices?
Yes, sir.
May I approach the witness?
Sure.
This is Exhibit 422. Sir, just confirm for us that that's your CV.
Smith, do you object to its admission?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. No objection to his admission, and
Yes,
also no
CV.
objection to his qualifications.
CV. So you would stipulate to his qualifications. You would stipulate that he's an expert in forensic examination of computers.
Yes, yes, sir.
Forensic.
Cellular cell phone forensics, historical cell site analysis.
Yes, the defense stipulates to both of those, the CV and that he's qualified as an expert.
Historic. Say it again, please.
Cell site analysis. And cell phone forensics.
Historic cell site and cell phone. Okay. You may consider him as an expert in the area of historic cell site analysis and cell phone analysis. Is that right? Yeah. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you. Well, sir, now we don't have to go through the entire CV, but let's just talk a little bit about your training as it pertains to cell phone downloads and forensic analysis.
Okay.
Okay, so is it fair to say that this field is evolving?
Always.
So you said you spent 10 years there?
Yes, sir.
What sort of things did you do in computer crimes 10 years ago?
Things were a lot different. It was actually a lot easier to do forensics back then because with updates of how the phones operate, how Apple or whoever Android operating system, they just make it more difficult. And now we have to figure that out.
What do you mean more difficult?
With encryption, file-based encryption on a hard drive, so data that you hold personal can't just be taken off the phone and given out to whoever.
So talking about what a detective in computer crimes, or first of all, what your current role at the Secret Service, what exactly do you do there?
I'm a network intrusion forensic analyst.
Okay, so would that be the same sort of duties you've had in computer crimes?
Yeah, the same thing that I did, cell phone analysis, computers, just with more network intrusion, like someone hacks into a bank or something like that.
Okay, so walk me through, what is a typical day for an expert in the area of cell phone forensics?
Typical day is you come into work, you just see what work needs to be done. Really, the case, depending on the case, how important it might be to get that, to either examine those phones or contact the detective that brought that stuff in to see exactly what they're looking for on those devices.
So you'd be somebody to receive the cell phone, seize an investigation, and then conduct an investigation into that device?
Correct.
Okay, so what does that entail?
That entails, depending on the device, we have tools that are able to obtain the data from the phones. And then we then take that data because it could be voluminous, thousands and thousands, hundreds of thousands of pages, and then put it into an easy readable format called Celebrate is the company. They make a forensic analyzer reader, which makes it easy to look at.
So that reader, that's one of the tools, forensic tools you mentioned?
That's not the tool that we use. That's what we give out to investigators. The tool that we use is a little bit more than that reader tool, with the functionality that it gives us. But the reader tool makes it easier for the average investigator to look at.
Okay, so help me understand this. So a phone is taken as part of evidence, a search warrant is obtained for that phone, and then you're given the phone itself. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay, so tell the jury, please, what do you do with the phone? Walk us through that step by step.
Depending on the phone, again, if it's passcode protected, if it's not passcode protected, there's different steps that we have to do. We hook it up to the tool. In this case, it would have been Celebrate, again, as a company, and the tool is their Celebrate Premium platform, and that's able to obtain what's called a full file system, which is everything on the phone, everything you can get off of it, as long as there's not encryption on it.
What's encryption?
Encryption is, how do I describe it? I don't make it easy, it just jumbles up the information. It makes the word "the" look like absolutely nothing that you could understand.
Okay. So, as an investigator in the area of digital information, you don't confine yourself just to a cell phone. Would that be right?
Oh, that's correct.
Okay. So, what other sources of information would you draw upon as an investigator?
Someone's social media accounts, Facebook Messenger, Snapchat, all that stuff, anything you would download to your phone. And obviously the phones are cell phones, so you don't want to get the cell phone records from the carrier.
Okay. Now, talk to us about how you obtain the information from other sources other than just the device itself.
Via search warrant.
Okay. Before a search warrant is sent, do you send something else?
Yeah, there's something called a preservation letter. What that does is in order for us to get a search warrant, you have to have probable cause or read a judge to believe that the information you're looking for is going to be there. So while we're trying to gather that probable cause, we tell AT&T, don't destroy these records under any circumstances for 90 days until we hear back from us.
Okay. Now, as an investigator, why is it important to not confine yourself to just the device itself? When I say device, I'm talking about a cell phone. So why would you not confine yourself just to that cell phone?
Because sometimes the stuff isn't always stored on the phone. It could be stored on a server, and the computer system, like, again, Facebook, for example, or Instagram, that information isn't always stored directly on your device. It's stored on a server that your phone just accesses.
Okay. So is it your goal then as an investigator in computer forensics to gather as much information as possible?
Always.
And then when you gather the information, what do you do with it?
Start talking to the OIC, as it's called, the officer in charge of the case. What are you guys looking for? What do you need? How can we help you, basically?
Okay. Now, is every cell phone the same in how they store and transmit data?
No, sir.
Okay, tell me the differences.
The difference is, like, to put it plainly, the more advanced the phone, Apple, for example, or a higher-end Android device like a Samsung, could have file-based encryption, where a lower-end phone doesn't necessarily have that file-based encryption.
Do you know why that is?
It's just whatever the manufacturer wants to put on the phone to keep the cost down, to not have as many developers and all that stuff. You just keep the cost down by not having that as part of your platform.
So if the user of a phone is spending more money for the device from a certain manufacturer, they can expect to have a higher level of encryption. Right?
Yeah, and features, yes.
And features. Okay.
Yes.
So then, is it possible to recover deleted content from a phone?
Potentially.
And why is it potential?
Potentially because, again, you go back to that file-based encryption that I've said over and over. Once you delete something on your phone, it's not necessarily always deleted on the phone, it's just encrypted. You telling it to delete it just erases the path to get you that encrypted data. And so we can't find it.
So it has nothing to do with the forensic tools at your disposal, it's regarding the manufacturer of the device itself?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, you talked about how some information can be stored on a server as opposed to a device. If something is deleted from a phone by the user, are you still able to recover it from the server?
Potentially, yes.
Okay, and tell me in what circumstances.
For this situation in particular, I did some research. Facebook Messenger, for example, two people are having a conversation. I delete it on my phone. All I do is I tell my phone I don't want to see it anymore. Where Facebook, as the other person wants to see that conversation, won't delete it so that person can still read the conversation on their end of the phone.
Okay, so let's say you and I have a Facebook Messenger chat with each other, and I delete that from my phone. If the investigator wanted to recover that information, it wouldn't be on my phone. Is that correct?
Possibly, yes. Correct.
Okay, but then you could send a search warrant to Facebook, to the server, and obtain that information.
Correct.
Okay. Now, what if you and I both deleted it from our phones? What would happen then?
According to what I looked up and looked at Facebook's website, that it won't be available.
Okay, so then it's deleted completely if both users of the chat delete it.
Correct.
Okay. Now, what about deleted text messages on the device itself? Tell me how that works.
Yeah, it just comes back to possibly being able to delete or retrieve deleted text messages on how they're stored in the phone, if the database is still available, or if the app's totally deleted from the phone, and all that data is stored in the phone, and I tell it to delete that app, then it could possibly be totally gone.
So if you were to review, let's say, screenshots from one person's phone, and then a forensic analysis of somebody else's phone, if the screenshots didn't match up with the forensic analysis, what would that tell you?
That was possibly deleted.
Okay. Now, during the course of this investigation, People versus Jennifer Crumbley, did you uncover evidence of deleted content from Jennifer Crumbley's phone?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, and we're going to get into that later. But before we do, could you tell us just in general terms, what does a cell phone do that maybe a layperson wouldn't know?
It's continually working in the background, talking to a cell tower. One, so your carrier knows where you're at, so it can give you the phone call that someone's trying to get a hold of you, or the text message, or it is updating your email account without you telling it to do it, because the application is just constantly looking for a signal. So you open it and there's most updated information.
And that's when the phone's powered on, right?
Correct.
Okay, so when the phone's powered on, it's constantly doing things. Would that be right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And what about when the phone's powered off?
It's doing nothing. It's just off.
Okay, so it can't update?
Correct.
Okay, so when a phone's powered on, is it possible to obtain the location of that device?
Yes.
How so?
Because there's a feature, whether you have an Apple product or an Android product, each one of them has what they call location services, and it's actually to benefit the user of the phone. So because that information is sold to McDonald's or whatever, you're near McDonald's and your device says, hey, I'm near McDonald's, oh cool, I'll send you an ad for McDonald's or a coupon for McDonald's. So that's...
Okay.
Yeah.
So you have, as an investigator, a fair amount of reliability in that because of the capability for somebody's phone to sell the device basically to an advertiser.
Correct, yes.
Okay. And are you able to obtain someone's location from their phone based upon other data as well?
That's correct, yes.
And how so?
Through the carrier themselves, AT&T or T-Mobile, whoever you may have. Again, your cell phone's constantly talking to a cell tower, and they try to triangulate your position on where you are based on the signal back and forth from each tower.
Now, on an Android phone, for example, it automatically comes with a Gmail account. Is that right?
No, you have to make a Gmail account.
Okay, you make a Gmail account.
Yes.
Okay. So if someone were to have a Gmail account, would that also help an investigator determine the location of that device?
Absolutely, yes.
Why is that?
Because again, that information, that location services is stored within that particular Gmail account that someone might have. So if we would search more on Google for your particular email, the Gmail, they would have, if that's turned on, the location services would be given to us.
Okay. So I want to talk about the evidence in this particular case. There were a total of 7 phones recovered, and I'll go step by step with you. So I'm going to review with you, I'll show you a slide here, of some of the sources of available information. So you see that as the school shooter, his initials.
Yes, sir.
Now, is it true that you reviewed a T-Mobile phone, last 4 digits, the phone number 1551?
That's
a
right.
Facebook account?
Correct.
And an Instagram account?
Correct.
And you were able to determine, and we heard testimony yesterday, that both James and Jennifer Crumbley followed that particular account?
That's correct, they did.
Okay. So you were able to review not only the shooter's phone, but also social media, Facebook and Instagram for that individual?
Correct.
Okay. Now regarding Jennifer Crumbley's electronic information, you reviewed information from 3 phones.
Correct.
Okay, so we have one listed as an original phone. Are you aware that her original phone was seized on November the 30th in the evening?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then you're aware that she purchased what we refer to as a burner phone or a track phone that night?
Correct.
Okay. And then that's the number, the 947 phone number?
Correct, that's right.
Okay. And you're also aware that subsequent to turning over her original phone and prior to arrest, she obtained another phone?
Correct.
And that was with her same original phone number?
Correct.
Okay, so you reviewed that device as well?
Exactly, yes, sir.
Okay. So just so we're clear, when I say you review the device, we're talking about forensically analyzing the data on that cell phone?
Correct, yeah, exactly.
Okay. You were also able to obtain information from Facebook, from 2 different Facebook accounts?
Correct.
Okay. And information from a search warrant served on Google regarding her Gmail account?
Correct.
Okay. And that Gmail account and that Yahoo account, does that include location data?
The Gmail account, yes, yes, it does.
Gmail account did?
Yes.
Okay. Now regarding James Crumbley, again, 3 cell phones. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. His Instagram account?
Correct.
His Yahoo account?
Correct.
His Gmail account?
Correct.
An email through Charter Communications?
Correct, yes.
And then the search warrant was served on DoorDash to obtain his DoorDash driving location history.
Correct.
Okay. Now, your goal with obtaining all of this information as an investigator into digital evidence is to obtain the who, the what, the where, the why, and turn that information over to the officer in charge and ultimately the prosecutors in the court. Is that right?
Correct. Everything we can get.
Okay. Okay, so I'm going to show you People's Exhibit 76. I don't believe we have an objection to any of the evidence coming in through Officer or Investigator Wagrowski, do we?
No, we have several objections, and I believe many of them have been placed on the record already, but let me open up 76.
Okay, this is 76, okay,
We have no objection to 76.
okay, 76.
And I'm sorry, with this witness, we're gonna have to go exhibit by exhibit.
That's all right. 76 is admitted.
Okay, so what are we looking at?
That is what it would look like, a printout from the Celebrate Reader or Celebrate Physical Analyzer program of someone's information that came to their phone. And it's Jennifer Crumbley's followed her son's Instagram account.
Okay, so just to give us an idea of what we're looking at here, this is a snippet from a PDF export from that forensic tool they use.
Correct, yes.
Okay, so tell me how that digital information comes to you and how it ends up looking like this.
The reports, the information that we have, you can put it in any number of formats. You can put it in a PDF like this is, in a Word document or Excel spreadsheet. And you just tell the software what you want it to show you and export the software, and this is what it produces.
Okay. So moving on to Exhibit 77, this is a portion of James and Jennifer's Facebook messages. And Judge, I did want to place on the record that we do have an additional exhibit 423 that'll be introduced to this officer too. That's the entire Facebook message thread between James and Jennifer Crumbley. Counsel placed an objection on the record yesterday regarding that, so we're introducing the entire 2,000-page thread.
And Your Honor, I until I look at that 2,000-page thread, I object to it. My objection, I need to look through it. I might not object to it.
Okay,
My objection yesterday was about the exhibits the prosecution was showing, those individual exhibits. They deleted parts of those.
Hold on. Nobody deleted anything.
Okay.
This is
Well,
demonstrative aid. The exhibits are the same, and
okay,
we're giving the whole thing.
okay.
Okay, and
You can, they're admitting an exhibit and showing the jury portions of it. They're permitted to do that, right?
Right, so, but I'm just saying, my question yesterday about the parts missing did not mean I'm asking for all thousands and thousands of texts to be introduced.
Okay,
So I'm gonna take a look at them and see if we do have an objection, and we may not.
okay.
The other,
You've had them for a while.
what's that?
You've had them for a while.
Yeah, I
Okay,
have.
but
January of 22.
I guess the difficulty is that the prosecution does not want the jury to get the impression that they're in some way hiding something or not presenting something to them. So they're presenting the portions of that exhibit that they think are relevant for purposes of this witness's testimony. In the event that you want the entire exhibit in, the prosecution is saying we don't object to that.
Right.
So it's up to you. You can let us know.
Right, and I believe the only problem is this court's made other rulings where things are discussed in those texts that are not a part of this.
Okay.
So when I reviewed their exhibits, as a whole. They're allowed to show different pieces of the exhibits, but that didn't mean I was suggesting we just admit the whole thing, because you've made other rulings about,
Okay. All right.
okay?
They don't want the jury to think that they're not willing to provide the boxes and boxes of evidence. I'm sure that there are in both of these cases, but I'll leave it to you. They want to ask this witness questions about specific portions of those 2,000 pages. They don't want to show the jury 2,000 pages and then ask questions about it. So.
I completely understand that. I get that. The other thing I would ask the court is, until the exhibit is admitted, I would ask that the exhibits are not being published to the jury.
Yeah. Yes.
That's
correct.
fine. Yeah,
correct.
that's fine.
Okay. Well,
Correct. Agreed.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry. We're on exhibit 78.
This is 78.
Okay. And
Okay.
let me just find list really
Okay,
quick.
so 75's admitted.
In 78, we have no objection to.
Okay, yeah. Tell us what the exhibit is.
76 was admitted as well.
Yeah, just try to put tell us what the exhibit is prior to, so that she knows which one and can object.
I have that 76 was admitted, 78 was admitted. The prosecution indicated they are skipping what was proposed
77.
exhibit 77.
Correct.
Okay, so,
Although we have no objection to 77.
okay, so you don't object to 76 or 78, so they're admitted. Okay. All right, go ahead.
Thank you. Okay. Do you remember my question?
No, sir, I don't.
I don't either.
Okay. All right. So this is Exhibit 78. It's been admitted. This is from the James and Jennifer Facebook message thread. Okay. So before we get into the content, you talked for a little bit before about deleted content, specifically a Facebook Messenger thread between two people.
Correct.
Okay. Now, in the course of your investigation, you came to learn that Jennifer Crumbley had a Facebook account.
That's correct.
And that James Crumbley also had one.
That's correct.
Okay. Did you uncover this particular chat thread on Jennifer Crumbley's phone?
No,
Okay. How did you obtain it?
through a search warrant to James Crumbley's account.
Okay. So if there is an actual chat history, in this case, a 2,000-page chat history between two people, but it's not found on a device, but it's found on the server, what does that indicate to you?
That one person deleted it.
Okay. And in fact, Jennifer Crumbley had the Facebook Messenger app on her phone.
That's correct, she did.
Just this was deleted.
The chat thread, correct.
All right. Now 78 is a few slides, so we'll go through it together. Okay, we have the date and time up there. We're going to start with March the 9th of 2021. We're going to backtrack a day to give a context, and then we're going to go through late winter, early spring of 2021. Okay, so before we get into this, is it fair to say that as an investigator who analyzes all this electronic and digital information, you're able to provide a digital footprint for the individuals you're investigating?
That's correct.
Okay, and that's the goal of your investigation, generally speaking?
Yes, sir.
All right. Blue is who?
That is Jennifer.
That's Jennifer, okay. So she wrote, leaving at 4 today, what time you done? And that was March 9th at 2:55 p.m.
Correct.
Okay, now it says UTC -5. What does that mean?
The UTC is, that people might know as GMT, it's where all time starts in Greenwich, and then it goes plus or minus depending on which way you go from that line. At that time of the year in March, we were -5 hours from the start of time. So if you add 5 hours, it would give you what the UTC actual time is on the Earth.
So when we see UTC minus a number, that indicates to us that that's real time.
That's correct. It's already been factored in. The software did that.
Perfect, okay. So March the 9th, you able to get an idea what James and Jennifer were doing and talking about in this conversation?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so she wrote leaving at 4 today, what time you done? James wrote 5, he's in green,
Correct.
and we know that because that's his Facebook ID as well as his name that came with the Cellbrite reader.
Correct. Yes, sir.
Okay, and she wrote, okay, see you at 5:30.
Correct.
Sir, in all the information that you recovered, is it fair to say that James and Jennifer Crumbley communicated quite a bit through Facebook Messenger?
Yes, sir. They did.
And so the Facebook Messenger thread is substantially more so in volume and data than any text message thread you found between the two of them.
That's correct.
Okay. All right. 3:46, March 9th, Jennifer wrote, bring me socks and a drink, LOL. What did James write?
A drink? Nah.
Okay. Jennifer, got myself a drink at 4:31 p.m. And James's response?
Okay, you grabbed smokes too? Almost out, I think.
Okay. And she writes, yes. Did you check the front porch? And what did James write?
Nothing on the porch. What were you expecting?
And she wrote their new blankets. Now, are you able to determine where they go later that day?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so need hoodie, NOL socks, I believe that was supposed to be wool. He wrote hoodie check, what are no socks on my way. Okay, now this is exhibit 79. Actually, I'm gonna approach, unless there's an objection to the photograph found on her phone.
I have no objection, but again, I would ask.
That's fine, that's fine.
Before they,
Yeah, I agree with you.
Thank
I
you.
agree- I agree with you. Okay.
but no objection to 79, thank you.
79 admitted.
There's two exhibits on one side, so
Okay.
this is 79 and underneath it is 80. Have you seen those items before?
Yes, sir.
And how have you seen them?
There were pictures on Jennifer's phone.
Okay, so I'm gonna move to admit 79, I believe stipulation, as well as 80.
I'm sorry, can I have a moment, please?
Sure.
I have no objection to 79 or 80.
Okay,
That's
so
correct.
79 is admitted and 80 is admitted.
Now, as an investigator, are you able to tell when you look at a photograph that's saved on a phone, where the photograph was taken and when it was taken?
Potentially, yes, sir.
Potentially, okay, in what circumstances?
If the camera is set to record, that you wanted to tell you the date and time that it was taken and the GPS location of where you're at on the earth.
Okay, so 79 and 80 on the screen. 79 is the picture itself, and then in the text box on the right, that's the metadata?
Correct.
What's metadata?
Metadata is, we call it, it's the data within the data. The main data here is a picture of the horse. The metadata inside that data is all the stuff, the camera make, the camera model that's captured that you just don't usually ever know what happens.
You know, I think before we get into your investigation into the phones itself, I want us to back up a little bit and talk about your involvement, how you got involved in this case. So November 30th, 2021, you were a detective in computer crimes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And do you remember that day? Okay. Were you working?
Yes, sir.
Where were you at 12:51 p.m. on November 30th?
At 12:51 p.m., I was sitting in my office, I believe, at the Oakland County Sheriff's Office.
Okay. Did you learn of the school shooting in Oxford?
Yes, sir.
Tell me how you learned that and what you did next.
Our captain came in, and well, prior to that, our sergeant, who was off that day, had said that there was a shooter at the high school. And we thought in the office, like, there's just somebody near the area that fired a long gun or something like that, you know, from a house, and, you know, the police are gonna show up and do their job. And then probably a few minutes after that, our captain came in and said that there was a shooting at Oxford High School, and the phrase used was all hands on deck.
Okay. So what'd you do?
Being what is referred to in the business as a computer nerd, you just grab your stuff, you know, your computer, your laptop, what you think you might need, what we had no idea what we were getting into. And I knew Oxford was a long ways away from the Pontiac area. I figured by the time I got there, it was going to be long over, and me and my partners are just going to do what we do.
Okay, so did you get in a squad car? Did you get in an unmarked car?
I have an unmarked, at the time I had an unmarked white minivan with emergency lights and siren in it.
So did you start heading north then?
Yes, sir.
All right, tell me about that.
Well, at first it didn't seem real. I remember pulling out of the parking lot, and I looked to my left, and there was some patrol cars coming around the corner. There's the medical examiner's office down there. And I'm like, then it like really came real, like, holy crap, like they know about it. It was the state police. I'm like, they know about it. Like, this is serious. It's bigger than I could ever have imagined. So I flipped my lights on at that point and just drove north.
Okay. How fast were you going?
As fast as the van will let me.
How long did it take you to get there?
I have no idea. It seemed like eternity, I can tell you that much.
So Oxford High School, it's a large school. It's one level. It's one story, rather.
Yes, sir.
As far as area, it's got a pretty big footprint. Okay, so where did you go when you pulled up?
When I was driving there, there's a lot of radio traffic, a lot. I remember I was actually at 24 and Lapeer Road, M24 Lapeer Road and Updike, and they called that S1 was in custody. And I was still, I know, a ways off from there. But that, you know, we didn't know what was going on. We didn't know if there was a second shooter, third shooter, a bomb planted somewhere. So, you know, we just didn't stop. I drove north on 24. Again, it seemed like eternity. And with every half mile I drove, it seemed like there was another emergency vehicle falling in behind me.
Yesterday was described as a caravan. Would that be accurate?
Oh, it was definitely carried. There was one time I remember approaching a light, we were getting closer, and there was, the light had just turned red. So cross traffic was gonna start, which obviously a dangerous situation, being in a car. Actually, the white minivan that no one believes is a police car. And so as I approached, I got, up into the intersection. I inched my way in there to stop traffic and hold the intersection. And I counted every vehicle that went past me. There were 18, or SWAT trucks, ambulance, patrol cars from agencies that were nowhere even near our area.
So tell me what you see when you pull up on the scene.
Like I said, there's a lot of chatter on the radio. I wasn't familiar. I'm not familiar with the area of Oxford at the time. I had no idea where the school was. All I could hear was the staging area and Ray Road. And so I'm just thinking, I'm just going to drive north. I'm going to follow this caravan. We're going to go up there. And as soon as I see the Meyer, I'm going to stop there because I have no idea where the heck I'm going. I didn't bother putting in my GPS, of course. And I turn onto Ray Road, and all I see is I see kids that look like my kids. There were girls wearing real, small clothing, and I had one kid. I didn't have a shoe on. They were coming down the road, coming towards the Meyer, and just like walking across the snow. And I remember it was cold that day. I had 2 coats on, and I was shaking when I got out of my car. And there was kids just walking past me, dressed like anybody in this courtroom is right now, they're not ready for the weather.
So you said you went to the Meyer on Ray Road?
Yes.
Did you learn that was the reunification point for parents and children?
At the time, I didn't know that was a reunification point. I just saw that there were a ton of kids going there. When I got out of my car, walked down there. They were sending everybody down to the garden area to try to get, the names of people that had gotten to that point. And once that would be at the south end of the Myers. Once I got to the garden area, there were kids just everywhere, just in the cold or making their way into I'm sorry.
Okay. What did you do when you arrived? Where did you go?
Like I said, I went to the garden area. I picked up on what they were trying to do. They were passing out notebooks, just to write down everybody's names and phone number, all the students that were coming in. So I first started just collecting that. And then they started telling everybody, we got to go outside and get all the kids inside because again, it was freezing out there. And so I go back outside and I start trying to direct people to go inside. And I know the trauma they just experienced, so I'm not gonna force them in the building. I'm not gonna grab them and drag them in there. And I remember putting my arm on a couple of the kids' shoulders, and they didn't move, they didn't nudge, they didn't do anything. There were parents there, just standing there. There were some parents that had made it reunified with their kids. I remember seeing school buses pull up.
School buses with who?
Students on it that had made it out of the school.
Did you go to the school?
Yes, I was probably at the Meyer for 15 minutes, 10, 15 minutes maybe. And then Detective Jeff Enger had called me and said that he was attempting to obtain the security footage for the school.
Where does Jeff Enger work?
He's also a detective at Peter Griffin, worked with me.
So you were asked to go to the school?
Yes, sir.
Why were you asked to go there?
At that time, I was a little more versed in DVR systems. Jeff had told me, Detective Enger had told me that he was looking to trying to get that off of there, and he just didn't, he wanted to get it right, of course. And so he asked me to come up there and help him.
Okay. So you drove to the high school from Meyer, or did you walk?
I drove.
Okay. And where did you go when you got there?
I drove to what would have been the north entrance of the school.
The main entrance?
Yes, main entrance.
And tell me what you saw when you walked in.
When I first walked in, there's vehicles people walking in, coming in and out, crazy chaos. And I walk in and Sergeant Sean Wilson was standing at the door. keeping security, so to speak, at the time, not making sure people aren't coming in, they shouldn't be there.
Okay. And where did you go?
I asked where the security office was, because that's where Detective Egger told me he was, and people pointed me, eventually it was back behind the main office.
Okay. So tell me what you did when you arrived and who was there.
Jim Rourke was there, who was a school security at the time. He was trying to get the video footage. Detective Jeff Egger was in the room. Sergeant Lieutenant Marsban was in the room. Deputy Lewert, who was a school resource officer, was in the room. And ATF agent was also in the room.
That was Mr. Brandon?
Yes, exactly, yes.
Special agent, not Mr., I'm sorry.
Yes.
Did you know him at the time?
I had no idea who he was.
Okay. And you said you had a familiarity with DVR systems, that's why you were called.
Correct, yes, sir.
Okay, so what was your specific role at this part of the investigation?
I'll be honest, I wasn't given a direct mission or anything at that time, because they were looking for a second bad guy or a third bad guy. And so I knew that people would want to know, the bosses would want to know what happened, like how did, where did it start? Who was it if they didn't know that, or were there more people or whatever? So we just started to look for the shooter in the hallway that started.
Was the school made safe at that point? They were still clearing the school?
No, it was not.
Okay. So the officers were still conducting their searches, because like you said, they weren't sure if it was one shooter, two shooter,
Yeah,
one shooters?
It might have been, I'm sorry. It might have been 1:30, 1:45 at this time, maybe a little bit later than that.
Okay, that's the time you arrived at the school?
And got to the office, correct?
Got to the office, okay, thank you. Did you learn how many surveillance cameras were active in Oxford High School on November the 30th of 21?
Yes, there's well over 90 of them.
Over 90, okay. And so it was your job at that point, or your role as you saw it, to identify who the shooter was?
Correct.
Okay, so how did you go about doing that?
We started in the hallway, the 200 hallway where it all started, in the bathroom that the shooter came out. And we attempted to backtrack him going in there. I remember it took us like 15 minutes to try to figure out, because he had actually changed his clothes. We didn't know who the shooter was. We didn't know his name in the office at that time. He was in custody at the time, but we didn't know. And I remember someone in the office, someone saying, eventually giving us his name, and then saying that he was in the school counselor's office earlier that day. So we went back to that time of day when he was going in and out of the school counseling office to find out what he was actually wearing at that time. And we were able to follow him to the bathroom then.
How long did that process take you?
Well, because we didn't know what he was wearing, it took us 20 minutes to try to figure that out.
Now, are you the person, so you backtrack to the point where the shooter walked into the bathroom that he emerged from to begin the shooting, is that right?
Correct, yes, sir.
Okay. So are you the person, the investigator, who actually put together the footage of the shooting itself?
Yes, sir.
So you're familiar with the path the shooter took in the school?
Very much so, yes.
I'm going to ask you to walk us through that. So you told us that he went into a bathroom. That's the bathroom adjacent to room 258?
Correct, yes.
Okay, tell us what happens next.
He comes out of the bathroom. What I envision is he comes out of the bathroom with a proud chest, with his almost like his shoulders are back, like he looked excited. He comes out of the bathroom, and immediately to his left is a victim, and he shoots her in her neck, and then her boyfriend was there and shot him in his. He put his hand up and shot him in his mouth.
Okay. And that's right outside 258?
Yes, sir.
What happened next?
He then quickly turned his gun to a group of 4 girls that were just standing there. He shot Hannah St. Julian, and she immediately fell to the ground. And then he continued shooting in the area that those girls were, and they sort of just like fell on top of each other, because they were hit as well.
Yeah, first one is?
Sure.
This is a map. It's already been admitted. You can use it to describe.
What exhibit number?
That's 5, Judge. Thank you.
Judge 5, okay. Exhibit 5.
Exhibit 5.
At this point, it's under a minute that all that shooting happened. And then, so at that point, obviously, it must have really again kicked in, for lack of a better phrase, to the victims in the hallway, and they started running. Then the shooter, with just a one-arm grab, just started firing rounds down the hallway, with no regard for obviously anything, and bullets are flying, and there was one girl who was you see at the end of the hallway. She just, as the shooting starts, she drops down into the fetal position, attempt to protect herself, and the shooter runs up to her and just puts the gun right to her head. And that was Madison. And you see her fall over. He then goes around the hallway. And there's, at this time, all the kids have gotten out of the area, most of the kids. You see two girls. One stops at a classroom that obviously the victims inside have already locked the door, so you can't pull it open. You see her trying to tug on that door. And there's another girl with dark hair that comes running up behind her and like grabs her while the shooter is just shooting down the hallway. And then they just take off running further down the hallway. Then now he's rounded the corner from where it all started. Continues going down the hallway. I think at that point he might have reloaded his gun and continued down the hallway. I'm sorry. And then he stops as he gets to, like, there's a courtyard, what they call the cubby. Jim worked on what they call this area the cubby, where the cameras are. And you see Tate Beer, he comes in the door and then just takes a left. He must not have known what was going on. That's when the shooter leveled the gun, like if you were at a gun range and practicing. Leveled the gun, appeared to look down the sights of the gun, and fired a round. Tate just fell instantly. He continues on down the hallway, walks past Tate, doesn't care to acknowledge the fact that even happened. I'm sorry. Prior to walking down the hallway, that's right, he, while Tate's body was laying there, you see the shooter with the gun still level fires another round, and it causes Tate's body to jerk. I don't know if it hit him in the hip or the backside or whatever. Tate's body jerks, and then the shooter walks past him. You see his feet at the top of the camera frame. There's not a camera that picks him up because if there's not enough movement, they don't start recording. But you see his feet stop in what I later found out to be a teacher's classroom, and he turns and then he fires into that classroom. He continues on down the hallway, looking into classrooms and stuff like that. There was one, as he gets so far down the hallway, he fired a couple rounds down the hallway. Once he gets to a certain point, all the children are gone at this point. The teachers had gotten him out of there and ran, out of the building and out through the door, wherever the heck they could get out of there. As he's coming back, you see him stop because the way that classroom was, if you're walking away from it, it's on your right-hand side, you don't see the classroom because it's actually behind you at this point. But as he's coming back, he must have seen people hiding in a corner because he can now see through the window, and he fires off a few rounds through that window. He keeps coming down. He's coming back down the hallway now at this point. And then the assistant principal, Gibson Marshall, I didn't know her at the time. He walks right past her, and sort of, I don't know what she said to him, but if she said anything. But you see like the shooter as he's walking by, and the gun's in his hand, and he sort of just turns his head and just, I don't know why, but he turns his head and looks away from her, doesn't even look at her, doesn't acknowledge her after as he's walking past. And then he continues on down the hallway, and stops at the bathroom where Justin was killed. And just like an abrupt stop, like, okay, well, and he just turned right and went to the bathroom.
So, I didn't tell you I was gonna ask you that. You obviously have this committed to memory.
Oh, yes.
How many times have you seen this footage?
Like I said before, it's I don't know, it's burned in my brain.
And it was your responsibility to obtain that footage, to get the information to officials at the sheriff's office and federal law enforcement as well?
Yes, sir.
So you were the person that had to watch, rewind over and over again?
Countless times, yes.
Judge, this might be a good time for a short break.
Okay.
Your Honor, my client could use a second if we could, please. She's like, I'm trying to like,
Okay,
if we could.
okay, I understand. We
Thank
understand.
you.
We understand. Okay, so we're going to take a 10-minute break. So